The Battle of Plum Creek, a brutal clash and revenge. Dust, blood, and chaos. The Comanches struck with fury, their weapons slicing through the air. The Texas Rangers fought back just as fiercely, both sides locked in a deadly battle fueled by revenge. Bodies littered the ground, and the cries of the fallen echoed in the Texas wilderness. Who was truly to blame for this massacre? The ones who fought, or those who betrayed first? Want to know the full story? Hit like and subscribe to uncover the truth behind this brutal clash. The background: seeds of hatred and revenge. It began with Betrayal, the Council House fight of 1840. Comanche leaders sought peace with Texas authorities, but the meeting ended in bloodshed when the Texans turned on them, killing several and capturing others. Furious, Chief Buffalo Hump vowed revenge. He led a massive retaliatory raid, hundreds of warriors, families, and plunder, sweeping deep into Texas. It wasn't just a raid, it was defiance, a blood-soaked promise to repay treachery. Little did they know, the Texas Rangers were already tracking them, closing in with every step. The pursuit: Texas Rangers close in Ascent. Meanwhile, the Texas Rangers, though vastly outnumbered with only about 100 men, led by Jack Hayes and Ben McCulloch, were determined to track down the Comanche. Despite their smaller numbers, their advantage lay in their relentless persistence and deep knowledge of the land. While the Comanche moved deeper into hostile territory, weighed down by families and plunder, the Rangers, unencumbered by such burdens, closed the gap. Every day, they gained more ground. The wilderness, both a trap and a tool, was terrain the Rangers knew intimately. With time running out, their resolve only strengthened. The Comanche were unaware of how close the Texans had come, until it was too late. The Rangers pressed on through the harsh, rugged Texas terrain, aware that the stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just another military confrontation. The Comanche were terrorizing settlements, abducting women and children, and leaving them at the mercy of unimaginable brutality. The Rangers' mission was clear: stop the Comanche at any cost, knowing that failure would mean more innocent lives lost. For days, they followed the enemy's trail, unaware of how close they were to the Comanche. But finally, the Rangers reached the area near Plum Creek, distracted by the weight of their plunder and unaware of how near their pursuers were. The Comanche didn't realize the Texans had closed in. The moment of reckoning had arrived. As the Rangers neared Plum Creek, their hearts pounded with the realization that they were on the brink of something decisive. The wilderness that had been their ally now seemed like a trap closing in. There was no more time for tracking. The battle, which had been hanging in the balance, was about to begin. The weight of their pursuit and the lives at stake pressed down on their shoulders. The moment of reckoning was here. Meanwhile, the Texas Rangers, a ragtag band of just 100 men led by Jack Hayes and Ben McCulloch, pushed through the blistering Texas sun. Dust coated their faces, thorns tore at their boots, but their eyes burned with resolve. They'd heard the stories: settlements razed, children snatched from their beds, and each scream echoed in their minds. Though vastly outnumbered, they moved like shadows across the plains, their rifles gleaming in the harsh light. The Comanche, weighed down by plunder and families, left a trail of broken wagons and bloodied earth. Unbeknownst to them, the Rangers were closing in, their knowledge of every ridge and river turning the wilderness into a noose tightening around their prey. Day by day, the gap shrank, the air thick with the promise of violence. The clash. A battle unfolds. As evening descended, the Rangers stood in tense silence, the weight of the coming clash pressing down on them. Every step felt like a burden, the finality of what was about to happen impossible to ignore. Ben McCulloch's eyes were fixed ahead, his mind a whirlwind of resolve and concern. None of them wanted this fight, but they had no choice. Duty called, and fear could no longer hold them back. This was no longer about vengeance, it was about survival. Then, without warning, the first shots rang out, and the battle exploded into chaos. The Comanche, realizing they were being pursued, quickly set up a defensive position. Their extraordinary riding skills and deep knowledge of the terrain gave them an edge, allowing them to fire arrows with deadly accuracy and engage in fierce gunfire exchanges. The Rangers, though outnumbered, fought with grit and determination. They knew the land better than anyone, and they were experts at striking when the moment was right. Despite their advantages, hesitation crept into the Rangers' ranks. They feared that attacking too quickly would push the Comanche deeper into the wild, making them even harder to track. This brief moment of indecision allowed the battle to spiral into brutal chaos. The Comanche seized the opportunity, charging in and out of the Rangers' lines with terrifying speed, their movements relentless and unpredictable. The Rangers fought fiercely to hold their formation, but the Comanche warriors were everywhere. The battle became a series of shifting, intense clashes, each side testing the other's strength. The air was thick with the sounds of war cries, the crack of gunfire, and the sharp twang of arrows cutting through the chaos. Blood soaked the earth as both sides fought for every inch of ground. Men fell, wounded and dying, while the battle raged on with no clear victor in sight. The Comanche's speed and precision were formidable, but the Rangers' knowledge of the land and their unyielding determination kept them in the fight, refusing to back down. With every passing minute, the battle grew more savage, more intense. It was no longer about tactics. It was a fight for survival, where every breath counted and every moment brought a new wave of brutality. The lines between the two forces blurred as each side struggled for dominance in an all-out war of attrition. The turning point: a warrior falls. The battle raged on, but everything shifted when a key Comanche warrior, a respected leader, fell. His death was swift and brutal, sending shockwaves through the Comanche ranks. In an instant, the once unstoppable force faltered. The loss of their leader shattered their morale, and what had been a coordinated, relentless offensive turned into confusion and disarray. The Comanche, thrown off balance, began to hesitate, unsure of how to regroup. Seizing the opportunity, McCulloch shouted the command to charge. The Texas Rangers, fueled by a newfound sense of urgency, surged forward with relentless force. They cut through the now disorganized Comanche lines like a wave crashing onto the shore. Their attack swift and decisive. The tide of battle shifted in favor of the Texans as they pressed on, determined to take full advantage of the momentary chaos. With each passing second, the Comanche's resolve crumbled, and the Rangers pushed the retreating warriors further back. As the Comanche broke ranks and tried to escape, the Rangers pursued without mercy. Their hooves pounded the earth in a thunderous chase, the sound of clashing swords and the cries of the wounded filling the air. The battle, once fiercely contested, now seemed to favor the Texans, as the Comanche, disoriented and retreating, could no longer hold their ground. The aftermath: a Pyrrhic victory. By the time the battle ended, the Texas Rangers had claimed victory. Their rifles still smoking from the fierce fight, they had killed around 80 Comanche warriors, a devastating toll that left bodies strewn across the blood-stained banks of Plum Creek. Yet, as the dust settled, the triumph felt hollow. The Rangers had hoped to reclaim the stolen cattle and goods, but most of the plunder was gone. Wagons smashed, livestock slaughtered or lost to the wild. Worse still, the captives they'd fought to save remained in Comanche hands, their cries for help swallowed by the vast Texas wilderness. The most haunting loss was Nancy Crosby, a captive whose fate cut deeper than any bullet. She'd been torn from her home during the raid, forced to watch as her husband's throat was slit and her infant son's tiny body was dashed against the earth. In the chaos of the battle, she'd been abandoned, a fragile figure left to the mercy of her captors. When the Rangers found her, it was too late. Her lifeless body hung from a gnarled oak, swaying in the breeze, a rope biting into her bruised neck, a final brutal act of Comanche defiance that turned their victory to ashes. The Rangers stood in stunned silence, the weight of Nancy's death sinking into their bones. Ben McCulloch's eyes darkened as he cut her down, her cold form a stark reminder of their failure. Jack Hayes gripped his rifle, staring at the horizon where the Comanche had fled with the others they couldn't save. This Pyrrhic victory left a bitter taste. 80 dead warriors couldn't erase the image of her hanging there, nor the knowledge that the human cost of this war was far from reconciled. The lessons of Plum Creek, a cycle of vengeance. The Battle of Plum Creek was not just a military confrontation, it was a brutal reminder of the endless cycle of violence that defined the Texas-Comanche Wars. It was a battle fought not only on the physical battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of the people involved. The bloodshed and suffering left behind made it clear that revenge, once started, never truly ends. Each side's actions were born from years of violence and retaliation, and the battle itself was just one more chapter in a long, bitter war. As we look back on the events of Plum Creek, we are left with a sobering truth. War, no matter the reason, always takes a toll. The victory was empty, and the cost was high, both for the Texans and the Comanche. The people involved in the battle, whether they were warriors or innocents caught in the crossfire, were forever changed. And as we reflect on the lessons of this bloody conflict, we must ask ourselves, how much blood must be shed before the cycle of vengeance is broken?